recommend?
I recommend I'm Number 4 because it's about a guy with a bunch of superpowers and pretty cool.
Good for like action adventure, you think?
Yeah.
Good cliffhangers, that kind of thing?
Another book recommendation for a novel that, if we were in a more typical school year, this would be a whole class novel that we would read. This is historical fiction. It's a novel by Laurie Halse Anderson entitled Chains. I highly recommend this book to anyone who is remotely interested in historical fiction, because in this novel we have a main character, Isabel, who is enslaved. She's about your age and she's looking to gain her freedom. And if you just look at the artwork on the cover, you've got this is supposed to be representative of Isabel, and then you have these two birds here, and she constantly struggles throughout the novel with whether or not she should trust the loyalist or should she trust the colonists as far as her gaining access to her own freedom. This book in particular has, I think, in my opinion, one of the best villains or most evil characters, although there is a moment where you'll be able to laugh at this character finally towards the end. It is the first book in a trilogy in a series. The second book is entitled Forge, which actually is written from a different point of view, one of our other characters, Curzon, and then the story returns in the third book, Ashes, which just actually came out maybe within the last year or so. So I highly recommend Chains by Laurie Halse Anderson.
Hello, I'm Jewel Parker Rhodes. I'm the author of Ghost Boys. Ghost Boys is about 12-year-old Jerome, who is murdered by a police officer. As a ghost, Jerome sees the devastation his death has upon his family and his community. He also meets another ghost, Emmett Till, who was murdered because of historical racism decades ago. And Jerome gets to see Sarah, the white police officer's daughter, and Sarah sees Jerome, and together they communicate about how racism and racial bias has to
Hi,
stop.
this is Five Kingdoms by Brandon Mull. It's a really good book. I really enjoy it. This is the fourth book in the series, and it contains one particular reference to another Brandon Mull book that I really like. I'm not going to say what it is because I can spoil it, but it's really good. It's like Brandon Mull books are something that you can like really dive into and like really enjoy, rather than just like some books that are just one of them, so you can't like read anymore. But this is like really immersive and you can really read a lot of it. So it's something you can really get into if that's what you're looking for.
Stargazing by Jen Wang is a book about two girls. One has a condition that causes her to gaze out, and the other one tries to help her along the way while trying not to make enemies. It's an amazing book, and I read it back in 6th grade, and I would completely recommend it to anyone who loves graphic novels.
Here's the final book recommendation on this particular video, and it's by an author, K.A. Holt, and the title of this is Kids Under the Stairs, Ben B. and the Teacher Griever. K.A. Holt is the type of author that she's able to mix in kind of snarky humor, but also tackle some pretty big issues and just things that kids kind of go through, whether it might be struggling with learning, suffering a loss, or dealing with illness. The thing that I liked about Ben B probably the most was just the structure of it and the variety. If you take a look, I mean, you've got everything from artwork to free verse poetry to actual prose where it's written in paragraphs. This book is about 4 students who are forced to kind of do like a summer school program because they did not meet expectations for their standardized testing in Florida. And they meet this teacher who's willing to embrace their gaming abilities. And so that's why you'll see some of the scenes here are actually written as their screen conversations.
I think what I liked the second about this book probably the most would be just how emotional. It seems like it's pretty superficial and kind of a fun-loving book at first, but then by the end of the story, you really get to know the characters and see that they maybe weren't all that they were cracked up to be, that there's more than just the surface, and they become really good friends too by the end of the story. So I'll be curious to see if K.A. Holt turns this into a series. It kind of is left with the possibility of a continuation. That again is Ben B. and the Teacher Griever by K.A. Holt.